Alrighty. So, gonna be doing a video about making lamellar. It's something that I've done a couple of times now. It's something that I have had people ask me about, so I'm gonna do it. And I'm in garb because why not? And I've got a hood on because it makes me feel cool. Uh, so what I'm going to do is try to do a bit of an in-depth video if I can. I know the picture quality is not great. I'm watching it happen in real time, but we're going to do what we can. Okay, so lamellar is making armor out of little tiny plates. I mean, essentially, we're sewing them together, right? And I think of it kind of as like the Lego set of armor, right? The supplies that I need for this are hundreds of these, right? I use the little tombstone style plates for all the stuff that I do, though there are certainly other options that people have on the table. But this is what I have used in the past. This is what am comfortable talking about. Now you need those. I use paracord, which this isn't exactly the greatest quality of photo, like I said. And then other than that, I've got a lighter and an X-Acto knife. And aside from a lot of paracord and a lot of plates, that's really what it is that we're working with here. Eventually, to round out the armor, there will be leather and things like that, but I'm not going to be able to do that because I can't do that. So what that ends up making is armor like mine. This is my own personal set, right? So arm, torso armor, and then there's leg armor down there. Right now, because I made this for me, sized to myself, it moves really very well with me. I'm very comfortable fighting in it, and it works out pretty well. It's kind of hard to see. I'm going to try to get an angle where it's against something light. There's a little leather triangle here. Now this is because when I first made the armor, there was a nice armor gap here and here that even with my armor covering the sections it's supposed to cover, there were kill shots on me that were left available, and I didn't want that to happen. So I added some leather there. And there are a couple of like little nice things that I did that make the armor more usable in a practical sense for something like LARPing. Now the leg armor here, I'm going to try to pull it back up in a way that looks okay again. So the leg armor down here is connected a little bit differently than how most of it is, where most of the armor is really rather rigid, right? Like I can't bend it or pull it a whole lot. It'll move with me while I'm wearing it. But the leg armor itself pops up, and it's a much looser connection, which allows it to flap, which allows me to move my legs much more easily than I were to grab my daughters here. Than if I were to grab anything, or than if I were to have it, bound more tightly. So hers actually works out a little bit better for lighting. Not sure why. It's shinier, sure. But so this is the idea. Is to have armor that moves relatively well. It's relatively easy to assemble. It just takes time. So I'm just going to launch into like how this is actually made. Now, I'm currently working on a set for a buddy of mine. This is the first time that I've made it for someone who's like not living in the household that I live in. And like I said before, we've got the starter blocks, right? We've got I think I need 560 of these plates, right? Now, what you do with them is you take your paracord. What I do is I cut off a little bit of the tip, use a lighter to start melting it, and then quickly kind of form that into a little bit of a point, right? So the rest of it is all kind of like a large sewing project. So I take it, put the two plates so the holes are overlapping, right? And all I'm going to do is I'm going to run the paracord through the top hole there, pull it so that the knot in the back sticks, and then come back in through the bottom hole, right? So now I have a pair of plates that are stuck together, right? Do the same thing, and I'm going to keep on overlapping the same direction. I always have it so that the plate to the left is in front. It's just habit of mine, and since it's a habit, I don't have to think about it, which means that I can mindlessly do this for hours while doing something else. And with a short paracord like this, you know, normally it's a bit longer, but this one has seen some use. Then you can pretty rapidly crank out several of these plates stuck together, right? So here's just 4 all in a row. Now I'm going to take this apart because I don't need those 4 stuck in a row like that for anything. But when you get your rows by doing that, then what you want to do is start, so that's the basic technique, right? Is just connecting plates together in a row. Now, what to do with those rows is probably the most important part, right? I mean, if you don't have a plan on what you're doing before you start, you're going to be very lost. You're going to have a lot of difficulties even getting started with the project unless you have a good idea of what it is that you're, you know, going to be doing as you go along. So what lamellar is really taking these plates and making rectangles out of them. Okay, and then taking those rectangles and sewing them together, right? So these are the upper torso rectangles for the armor that I'm making. So they are, gonna bring up my daughters again, right? So for my buddy, I've got this section here, right? Can't see the back of it very well, but that's what it is, right? So the rectangle I just showed are those rectangles there. And then you hook the rectangles together in such a way that you end up with a full set of armor. So the rectangles are as follows, right? So there's the, what I call the kidney belt rectangle, which is right at the bottom of the screen. It's the big long one, right, that runs along the lower torso, front and back, okay? Now, the back plate here goes above the kidney belt section in the back, right? It just completes the armor back there. Then there is what I showed a minute ago, which is the upper torso rectangles, right? There's going to be one on each side, and they're going to go on the edge of the kidney belt, so when the kidney belt wraps around, that it closes in the front. I very, very much prefer front close lamellar because I can put it on and take it off like a jacket, and I don't need anyone's help with it. So like I can generally put on my kit in a couple of minutes by myself, and I can take it off even faster. The only part that I can't do by myself is like the bracers, tying the bracers. So the lamellar all goes on and off very easily. Okay, so we've got, at that point we would have a vest, right? If we had it closing at the front, we had the shoulder put in, and we've got the back, we've got a lamellar vest. Now, hooked up to the leather here, the leather shoulder, is an arm plate, right? An arm rectangle. There's another arm rectangle on the other side, right? And when you're wearing the armor, I just have a very simple like loop at the bottom that I slip my arm through, and then it will stay on top and actually generally stay in front while I'm moving, and it will move with me while I'm fighting. So it's very, very non-restrictive, and it covers the areas that I'm most likely to get hit in. And then the last couple of rectangles that we worry about are going to be the 2-leg rectangles, right? And this just flaps down in front of the thigh. The way that I have mine set up is that it goes around to, you know, a bit past mid-thigh, so it covers from the front to about here. And I figure if anyone hits me past that point, then good job them. But what I really, really like about that is not only can I put it on and take it off like a jacket, but I can also sit down while wearing this armor. And that is a ease of living sort of upgrade that I will absolutely take in my armor, even if it means that every once in a while I get hit in an unprotected torso shot. But usually it's because someone got behind me and they can have it at that point. So we going through it, we've got, the kidney belt section, right, which is going to go here all the way around, starting at the front, ending at the front. So that's one. The back plate is a second plate. Two small front plates for 3 and 4. Arm plate for 5 and 6. Leg plate for 7 and 8. So we're making 8 rectangles. Okay, and like I said, we're sewing these together in a line, and that's going to get. I'm going to show the. This is one of my buddies' kidney plate rows, right? So that we get these, and we are going to sew them together to create the rectangle, right? And this is all super simple. I mean, like I said, it's like putting Legos together. So what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to take these, and at the bottom and top of each plate, let me grab one of these because it's already up for demonstration. At the top of each plate, there are 2 small holes, and the bottom there's 1 large hole, right? Now, what we're going to do with those is just take our paracord, right? And I have the 2 holes, like the top is in front of the bottom. So it goes out the top, pull tight, right? I'm going to pull almost tight, actually. I'm going to give a little bit of wiggle room for this first one. And then back out through the bottom, but it's going to come back in through the same hole. Now then this cord is going to pull against the bar between the 2 holes, and now I've got that hooked together, right? I mean, I can grab on right here, and it's there, right? It's a simple thing. I'm sewing these armor plates together. So then I would go to the next one, out the top, and in through the bottom. Okay, so what I end up with is right here. You can see it kind of goes right across that section there. So you've got all these small diagonal ones are going from the top hole to the bottom hole as it goes across, whereas the ones that connect the rows to each other will be straight across. So were I to do this all the way down, which I don't think I'll have enough paracord for one of these, though, I could be wrong. I need to get more paracord to finish this project for sure, but that's not an issue. That's something that can come along later. But I'm going to show you here in a second what that's going to look like when it's actually done, right? We're just going to take a look at the inside of the armor that's already been done. And it looks like my daughter's armor is a little bit more photogenic tonight, so we're going to just grab that one. And 2 separate belt sections, they go over here. So for this, the inside, again, we've got these diagonal lines going across, right? That one looks kind of weird, but that's okay. So these diagonal lines going across that are going to connect each row to make a full row, and then these little like completely horizontal ones that are going to be going across, looking like just a line of dark paracord there, and that's going from vertical to or from the 2-hole 1-hole thing at the top and bottom, connecting each row to each other. So the inside, when it's completed, is going to look like a big old zigzag of paracord, but the outside of it just has these little loops, these nice little concealing things that don't look like anything. So we're going to go to the 2 chest plates, right? So these are relatively simple. They go across. You can see them, and this is all that we're doing. So that's. I feel like everything else is kind of going over what I've already talked about, But essentially, all that we're doing again is making rows, connecting those rows to each other to make rectangles, and then connecting the rectangles to each other. Uh, it really is that simple. You just need to plan out how you want that to be actually fit together. You want to figure out how you want to measure for how big of a rectangle you want for each of them, right? The kidney belt is pretty easy because you just go all the way around. I start at the sternum and measure down until it's the hip joint, and that's how many rows that I need for that. So that way I can bend my legs more easily. That's the point that I start adding the leg rectangles that are more loosely attached so it flaps. Um, but yeah, that's the gist of it. So if you're wanting to start a project like this, obviously the materials are going to be the biggest part of it. But just planning out, for my buddy's armor, his kidney belt is what, 6 rows of 35. So that's the bulk of his plates that he's using. But then I've got the upper torso plates are already assembled. I've got, for the back, 4 rows of 8 that are going to be connected to each other before being connected to the back. I've got the arms all set, right? So I've got 6 rows of 6 for the arms, and those will just, once they're all sewn together, just hang out and protect there. And the legs I don't have put together because I don't have enough plates to finish it all, so I'm gonna have to order some more of those. Um, but really, the planning is pretty rudimentary. The putting together is not a particularly complicated process. It's once you get your hand motions down, so you can just sit there and sew along mindlessly, like I throw on a TV show and go. But yeah, the final product is something that I consider to be very, very pretty. It's very, very easy to move in and fight in. And for the game of Amped Guard is reasonably min-maxed in terms of points while being very, very non-restrictive for moving. I actually find wearing my lamellar, my aluminum lamellar, to be a little bit more comfortable to fight in than like chain is. Um, because I feel like the weight is distributed more evenly and there's no like loose hanging parts that counteract my motions or anything like that. So that's about it. If there's anything that I missed, feel free to comment or shoot me a message. But this is it. Like it's really as simple as it sounds. You just make rows. You attach rows to each other to form rectangles, and then you attach rectangles to each other to form armor. Generally speaking, I want to pull pretty tight while making all of the stuff for the torso and the arms. And I want to make the legs so that they're pulled tight, but then I want to attach the leg rectangle to the kidney belt rectangle. I guess that is something to say there. I don't attach the legs to a belt. It is just here. So I've got this one row that is done much more loosely so that it flops against my legs while I'm fighting instead of like conforming tightly to it, which again, like is super non-restrictive. It lets me advance very quickly. It lets me pull back very quickly. And like I can do spin shots. I can get legged and drop down very quickly. It's really, really nice, user-friendly armor. Um, the last part, I guess I didn't really mention the lighter a whole lot. So once I'm done sewing the row, I'm going to tie a knot here, and I'm going to cut that off with the X-Acto knife, and then I've got 2 knots, one on each end, and I'm going to use the lighter. Thank you, lighter, for letting me down when I needed you most. And I'm just going to burn the paracord so that instead of it being a knot, it's kind of a fused knot. And then I'm going to retie a knot in it and move on to the next section. So it really is exactly. Good job, other lighter. There we go. Yeah. So, but it really, really is as simple as I'm making it out to be. It is relatively time intensive, but it's not super thought intensive. Like there's no there's no time except for the very initial planning stages that I'm ever sitting there going like, okay, like this is I have to do something kind of complicated here. It's going to require my full attention. Generally speaking, I just sit out. I like for the 35 that I had for the kidney belt rows. I just counted out 35, put them off to the side. So I had a stack of 35. I worked my way through that stack. When it was out, that row was done. So I didn't have to pay careful attention to it. Once I had the correct number at the beginning, I have the correct number at the end. And then I counted out 35 more and I did that. With the smaller ones, like these, 4x4 rectangles, um, all I did was I counted out 4 stacks of 4, did each stack one at a time. So I had 4 rows of 4 and then attached those 4 rows of 4 to each other. And now I've got my rectangle. So the armor is really coming along pretty well. This is with about, 2 afternoons work while I was doing other things during those afternoons. And yeah, like this is all coming together pretty quickly. I would expect that if I had the materials and the time to devote to it, that it would probably be somewhere between 20 and 30 man hours of work before I get to the point that I hand it off to someone else to do the leather because that's not my bag. Um, but yeah, it's something that I highly encourage if someone's looking at armor, that they look at lamellar, and that they heavily consider making it themselves because it's really just as simple as I laid it out there. So sorry if the video quality wasn't very high, but hopefully people that are checking this out get something out of it. So have a great day, night, whenever it is you're watching it. I don't know.